This is the story of a woman who turned late-night bar tips into a $24.5 million jewelry empire. At 21, she poured drinks until 3 a.m. for customers who tipped in crumpled singles. With $97 hidden in her locker money, earned one cocktail, one fake smile, one exhausting night at a time. 7 years later, she owned a jewelry brand worn by celebrities, sold in 2,000 stores, with diamonds and chains that made the world notice her shine. But the numbers don't tell you about the drunk customer who threw coins at her, or the moment she decided her worth wasn't measured in tips, it was measured in carats she'd create herself. Her name was Diamond. Ironic, considering at 21 she couldn't afford anything that sparkled. She worked the late shift at a downtown bar, pouring shots and mixing drinks, while men twice her age made inappropriate comments, and women looked through her like furniture. She made $4 an hour plus tips. Good nights meant $120. Bad nights meant $43. The $97 in her locker represented 2 weeks of saving, skipping meals, walking home at 4 a.m. to save cab fare, wearing the same outfit because new clothes weren't an option. But Diamond had a secret obsession. She studied every piece of jewelry that walked through that bar. She noticed which chains caught light, which rings looked cheap versus expensive, what people wore that made them feel powerful. During slow moments, she sketched jewelry designs on napkins, chains she imagined, rings that didn't exist, pieces that combined street style with luxury. At night, after smelling like alcohol and rejection, she researched jewelry manufacturing on her cracked phone. She watched videos about metalsmithing, studied successful jewelry brands, learned about wholesale diamonds and gold plating. She was teaching herself to become a jewelry designer while the world saw her as just a bartender. One night, a drunk customer threw a handful of quarters at her instead of leaving them on the bar. "Dance for it," he laughed, like she was entertainment, not human. Diamond picked up those quarters with shaking hands, smiled professionally, and silently vowed, "I'm going to wear diamonds so expensive that people like him could never afford to disrespect me." The breaking point came from observation. Diamond noticed everyone at the bar wanted to look expensive, but couldn't afford real luxury jewelry. They wore cheap chains that turned their necks green, fake diamonds that fooled nobody, pieces that screamed "I'm trying" instead of "I arrived." She had $97, barely enough for materials, but enough for a vision. She spent $82 on basic jewelry making supplies from a wholesaler, gold-plated chains, cubic zirconia stones, clasps, tools. She spent the remaining $15 on packaging she designed on a free app. In her tiny apartment, she created her first collection, 5 chain necklaces that looked luxury but were accessible. Pieces that gave people confidence without destroying their wallets. She called it Diamond Dynasty and made 20 pieces. She wore them to work, and within 1 week, 7 customers asked where they could buy them. She sold those 20 pieces for $45 each through Instagram, making $900 profit. More than 2 good weeks at the bar. Made in her apartment during hours she should have been sleeping. The voice in her head said she was delusional. But another voice whispered, "What if you're not selling jewelry? What if you're selling the feeling of being valuable?" That first month, Diamond made $1,300 selling jewelry while still bartending 70 hours a week. She reinvested everything. Better materials, real gold plating, better stones. She taught herself photography, social media marketing, jewelry, craftsmanship, all from free resources at dawn. At 22, her side business was making $4,000 monthly. Not enough to quit, but enough to dream bigger. She expanded her line: chains, rings, earrings, bracelets. Everything she created made people feel expensive without the luxury price tag. Every piece was inspired by what she observed at the bar, what people wanted to project. By 24, her monthly revenue hit $18,000. She finally quit bartending. Her manager said, "You'll miss the tips." Diamond smiled and thought, "I'm about to make tips look like pocket change." She rented a small studio, hired to employees, both former service workers who understood hunger. Her brand, Diamond Dynasty, became known for accessible luxury. Street style meets high-end, pieces that made you feel like you'd made it even if you were still climbing. At 26, her annual revenue reached $8.4 million. Celebrities started wearing her pieces. Music videos featured her chains. Influencers were posting. Major retailers were calling. The same world that had looked through her was now begging for her jewelry. By 27, her products were in 2,000 stores across 58 countries. Her team grew to 273 employees. Revenue reached $17.9 million. She'd created 486 jewelry pieces, each one still designed to make people feel valuable. She didn't just build a jewelry brand, she built a movement. Her marketing celebrated real people wearing real confidence. Her prices were accessible because she remembered counting coins. Her hiring priority was service workers, bartenders, servers, people the corporate world overlooked. At 28, her jewelry empire was valued at $24.5 million. She owned 74% of her company. The bartender, with $97 in tips, had built something that made the world shine brighter. One evening, Diamond was at a jewelry industry event when she saw him. The customer, the one who'd thrown quarters at her and told her to dance for it years ago. He was trying to get into the VIP section, but security stopped him. He didn't recognize Diamond now, dripping in her own diamonds. Wearing a custom piece worth more than his car, surrounded by celebrities and business moguls. She walked over, smiled, and told security, "Let him in. He's an old friend." His face went confused, then horrified, as recognition slowly crept in. "Wait, you used to. I used to serve you drinks," Diamond said calmly. "You once threw quarters at me and told me to dance. I picked them up and decided that night I'd wear diamonds so expensive you could never afford to make me feel small again. Mission accomplished. Enjoy the event." She walked away, her custom diamond chain catching every light in the room. She didn't need his apology. Her $24.5 million empire spoke louder than his cruelty ever could. She'd taken humiliation and turned it into a jewelry brand that adorned hundreds of thousands. She didn't need validation from people who'd treated her as less than. She had proof that tips don't define your worth, what you create does. What Diamond learned changed not just her bank account, but her entire soul. 1. Your hands can pour more than drinks. The same hands that mixed cocktails crafted a jewelry empire. 2. Every insult is fuel if you choose to use it that way. Quarters thrown at her became the foundation of a diamond dynasty. 3. The best brands come from people who've lived the need. Her jewelry succeeded because she understood wanting to feel valuable, because she'd felt disposable. 4. You don't need industry credentials. You need vision and the courage to execute it in your apartment at 5 a.m. 5. Service work teaches you what people want to feel, but building for yourself teaches you what you deserve to have. 6. The people who throw money at you dismissively will eventually pay premium prices for what you create. That's the universe balancing itself. Right now, someone watching this is working for tips that barely cover survival. You're serving people who don't see you, wondering if this is your ceiling. Let Diamond's story whisper to the part of you that refuses to stay invisible. Your empire is waiting in what you notice, what you create, what you dare to build. If this story reminded you that tips don't define your worth, smash that like button. Subscribe for more bartender transformations. Comment below with one product you've been afraid to create. Share this with every service worker who deserves to shine. Your jewelry empire starts tonight. Design it while they sleep. Build it while they doubt. Shine so bright they can't ignore you.